American history students. Today I'm going to show you how to take Cornell notes using your textbook. So you can see here I am on chapter 76. Everything is about Philadelphia, and I want to show you what Cornell notes would look like. So first of all, I have an outline here that you can find on the announcements page of American history. It shows you on the left-hand column go our key points or headers. Our details go on the other side, on the right, and then down below there's a summary. Now, if you want to make that by yourself, you can do the same thing. Put a title up at the top, 3 fingers over from the right margin. You're going to draw a line down about 3/4 of the paper, write key ideas at the top and details on the right, and then a summary down at the bottom. Now, I want to show you what it looks like for this to be done. This is for a different class, but you can see that I have several titles or subheaders, and then the details go with each one. So you can see it kind of goes across and down. Then at the very bottom, what I do is I take all of my information that I got from the top, and I turn it into paragraph form. So this shows you that at the top, you only use bullet points, phrases, abbreviations, and then at the bottom you use complete sentences, probably 3 to 4 sentences for a good summary. So let's take a look at our textbook and figure out what we might do for our notes. Again, today I'm going to be using a blank template, but if you would like to use a piece of paper or Microsoft Word or Microsoft OneNote, you can also do that. But it's expected that you'll take 2 column notes or what we call Cornell notes. So let's take a look in the book and read the first paragraph. I usually like to go paragraph by paragraph and then find a heading and some details with that. So it tells me that the heading for here is Summer in Philly. So I'm going to guess that most of this paragraph is about Philadelphia, but I'll have to read since there's not a subheading. It says, Everyone agreed that Philadelphia was the most modern city in America, perhaps the world. Boston's narrow, twisting streets reminded people of Europe's cities. But Philadelphia had straight, broad avenues that crossed each other, making nice, even rectangular blocks. Water pumps were spaced regularly on each block, and street lamps, 662 of them, lit the city at night. Philadelphia's streets were paved with cobblestones or brick. Some people complained of the noise when the horses' hoofs clattered over the stone, but they had to admit that it was better than dirt roads that turned dusty or muddy with weather. Philadelphia even had sidewalks. They were edged with posts to protect the pedestrians and traffic. Well, I would definitely say that the key points of this paragraph is that Philadelphia was modern. Make sure I spell this right. Now, by modern, we mean modern for the times, but that's okay because these are just notes. Now I'm going to fill out my details by looking at the paragraph. So if I take a look around, it looks like they have straight streets. They have sidewalks down at the bottom here. They had street lamps. And no dirt roads. Notice here that I'm just using a bullet point. I'm using small phrases. I'm not doing sentences. And I've even abbreviated a little bit where I know that I can still read it. So I've turned this paragraph into about 1 or 2 lines on my notes. Now I'm going to move on, and I'm going to look at the second part. It says, horse and carriage traffic was heavy and accidents were commonplace. It was to be expected. Philadelphia with 40,000 people was the largest city in North America. It was a city proud of itself. After all, it had 7,000 houses, 33 churches, 10 newspapers, 2 theaters, a university, a museum, and a model jail. So, I feel like this still talks about how Philadelphia was modern, so I'm going to continue my notes under here. Anytime I see numbers, I usually like to put those and dates in my notes. So I'm going to put 40,000 people and largest city. Now, although it's important to know that there was 40,000 people and it was a big city, it's probably not important to know for the test exactly how many houses, churches, and newspapers there were in Philadelphia. So I'm going to leave that out. This 40,000 people helps me to remind myself of these other numbers. All right, let's keep going. It says, the jail was across the lawn from the imposing state house. The language that came out of the windows of the jail was not model English. Ladies covered their ears and hurried by. At the red brick state house, the language was courtly and proper. Nearby, the new home of Philosophical Society, the language was scholarly. There, great men like Dr. Benjamin Franklin discussed science and the latest ideas. So, it talks a little bit about the jail. So I'm just going to put jail equals bad language. Oops. And there was one other place that was mentioned, the Philosophical Society. I'm going to write that down too. And about the Philosophical Society, I'm going to put equals good language. Okay. So I'm going to keep going on like that throughout every paragraph. So as I read, I find kind of the main idea, and then I find the details that go along with it. So it says, despite their dignified Quaker beginnings, Philadelphia's loved parades and celebrations. So when George Washington rode to town on May 13th, 1787 to attend the convention that was to write a new constitution for the new nation, it seemed as if all 40,000 people came out to cheer. Church bells rang, cannons fired, and those who lined the streets applauded the great general who had done so much to make the country free. I think that paragraph is really about George Washington attending the convention. So I think I have a new subtitle, which is the convention. So I'm going to put George Washington attended. And I'm going to keep going on. Now, I would probably get a full page of notes out of the rest of these paragraphs. So about every 2 pages, you might have to start a new page if you're using the graphic organizer, and that's okay. What I like to do is up at the top is write the lesson number. So let's say this was 108. So I know what I'm studying for in case the test tells me that I did poorly on that part. And then finally, we have to create a summary. Now, we don't have a lot of notes to create the summary yet, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how I would do that. So I might put in the summary, Philadelphia was a modern city with 40,000 people. I don't think it's probably important that the streets are straight or that jail had bad language or Philosophical Society, but I do think it was important that George Washington attended the convention. So I might say something like, George Washington attended the convention to make a new constitution. Now, we're going to want 3 or 4 sentences down here at the bottom on the summary. But as I would have more notes down here, I could add more to my summary. Your summary is really important. Don't skip that part. Number 1, because you're getting a grade on Cornell notes. But number 2, because that is where the memory comes into place. Your long-term memory, when you are writing and summarizing something, all of the information gets taken from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. If you have any questions on the expectations of Cornell notes, you can email me at molly.felton@ops.org. Otherwise, you know that the expectation of what you should be doing in social studies and science.